Early life of Amin. The man who would become known as Amin was born in the mid-1920s under circumstances shrouded in uncertainty. While his birth year has been variously reported as between 1923 and 1928, most evidence points to the earlier dates. The exact location of his birth is also a topic of debate. While some claim he was born in Kampala, the capital of Uganda, more reliable accounts suggest his birthplace was likely Kabako, a region in northwestern Uganda near the South Sudan border. Family background and ethnicity. Amin's father, Andreas Nyabir, was a member of the Kakwa ethnic group. He converted from Roman Catholicism to Islam in the early 20th century and adopted the name Amin Dada. There is, however, an alternative narrative that suggests a Nubian heritage, implying that Amin's family might have had Sudanese origins, possibly linked to the communities brought south by Emin Pasha, a late 19th century governor of the Ottoman province of Equatoria. Education and childhood. Amin's mother, Asa Ada, was of disputed ethnic lineage, potentially Kakwa or Lugbara. Amin's early life was marked by his father's abandonment, leaving him to be raised solely by his mother. He attended an Islamic school in Bombo during the early 1940s, a tumultuous period marked by World War II raging in nearby regions. Historical background. Uganda under colonial rule. To understand Amin's rise, it's essential to explore the history of Uganda under colonial rule. Like many African nations, Uganda's borders were drawn more by colonial imaginations than by ethnic or religious coherence. The region was a complex mosaic of different peoples and cultures. Ethnic and religious composition. Before colonial rule, the Baganda people dominated the southern part of modern Uganda, including the area around Kampala. The north and east were home to Nilotic peoples, such as the Kakwa and Lugbara, while the northwest harbored a substantial Sudanese population. Religious divisions were also prominent, with Islam spreading south from Egypt and Sudan in the north, and Christianity, both Roman Catholicism and Protestantism, gaining ground elsewhere. Impact of colonialism. The British established the Uganda Protectorate in 1894 as part of their broader imperial ambitions in Africa. This period saw the exacerbation of internal divisions, with colonial authorities favoring certain ethnic and religious groups, particularly Protestant Bagandans. The introduction of a modern infrastructure and economy was a double-edged sword, providing development while also cementing exploitative colonial practices. Rise of Amin. Amin's military career began in the King's African Rifles, KAR, of the British Colonial Army. Despite later fabrications about his service during World War II, his real military involvement began in the post-war period. Amin was known for his physical strength and athleticism, traits that earned him rapid promotions within the ranks of KAR. He was stationed in Kenya during the Mau Mau uprising, a significant period that saw his active participation in the suppression of the rebellion. Political landscape in post-colonial Uganda. As Uganda moved towards independence, the political landscape was tumultuous. The country, an artificial construct of British colonialism, struggled with uniting diverse ethnic and religious groups. Key political parties emerged, representing various segments of Ugandan society, but the political environment lacked maturity. This lack of cohesion set the stage for future conflicts and power struggles into which Amin would eventually step. Path to power. Amin's path to power was paved with both military prowess and political maneuvering. By the late 1960s, he had become a powerful figure within the Ugandan military, closely associated with then Prime Minister Milton Obote. Amin's involvement in corrupt activities, such as gold and ivory smuggling, not only enriched him but also strengthened his political connections. However, as Obote's regime became increasingly oppressive, Amin began to plot his own rise to power. Amin's reign, policies, and impact. Once in power, Amin's regime was marked by brutal suppression of opposition, ethnic persecution, and a disregard for human rights. He purged the military and government of perceived enemies, replacing them with loyalists who often lacked the necessary skills and training. His rule by decree led to widespread fear and oppression. Amin's regime was notorious for its human rights abuses. Estimates of those killed during his rule range from 300,000 to 500,000, including political opponents, ethnic minorities, and innocent civilians. The State Research Bureau and Public Safety Unit, Amin's intelligence agencies, were responsible for much of the violence and terror. Economic management. Amin's economic policies were disastrous for Uganda. His decision to expel the Asian community, who were pivotal in the country's economy, led to a drastic decline in economic productivity. Mismanagement and corruption further exacerbated the situation, leading to widespread poverty and a collapsing economy. Uganda's international relations under Amin. Amin's foreign policy was characterized by a shift from initially seeking support from Western countries to turning towards the Eastern Bloc and other non-aligned nations. His early overtures to Britain and Israel soon gave way to closer ties with Libya's Muammar Gaddafi and the Soviet Union, as he sought to consolidate his power and counter Western influence. Diplomatic incidents and conflicts. Amin's regime was involved in several international incidents, including the hijacking of an Air France plane in 1976 and the subsequent Israeli rescue operation at Entebbe Airport. These incidents further isolated Uganda internationally and showcased Amin's unpredictable and often reckless diplomatic style. Amin's international reputation. Internationally, Amin became known for his eccentricities and brutal rule. He was often ridiculed and feared in equal measure, with his outlandish claims and erratic behavior overshadowing the serious human rights abuses occurring under his regime. The fall of Amin. By the late 1970s, Amin's support within Uganda was waning. Ethnic tensions, economic hardship, and his increasingly erratic behavior led to growing opposition. This culminated in an attempted coup by his vice president, which, although unsuccessful, significantly weakened Amin's grip on power. The Uganda-Tanzania War. The Uganda-Tanzania War of 1978 to 1979 was the final blow to Amin's regime. Amin's attempt to annex the Kagera region in northern Tanzania backfired when Tanzanian forces, supported by Ugandan exiles, launched a counteroffensive. The war culminated in the capture of Kampala and the ousting of Amin from power. Exile and life after power. Following his overthrow, Amin fled first to Libya and then to Saudi Arabia, where he lived in exile until his death in 2003. Despite calls for his extradition and trial for human rights abuses, Amin lived a relatively comfortable life in exile, a stark contrast to the suffering he had inflicted on Uganda. Legacy and historical interpretation. Amin's legacy in Uganda is one of brutality, economic ruin, and ethnic division. His regime's actions had long-lasting impacts on Ugandan society, contributing to ongoing political instability and economic challenges. In the context of African dictatorships that emerged in the post-colonial period, Amin's regime stands out for its sheer brutality and the scale of human rights abuses. While other dictators like Mobutu Sese Seko of Zaire also engaged in corruption and oppression, Amin's unpredictable and violent rule places him among the most notorious.